Yeah. Welcome out, everybody, once again to this Boom Bap Breakfast. Have a vainglorious Wednesday right here at the RemiX Morning Show. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor, and your host for the day is Dr. Jared Ball. Burn it down, Kim Brown, and Kamal K. Franklin. Let's go.
Oh,
What's up, good people?
Vainglorious Wednesday.
I
know.
With the key.
You sissies.
There you go. That's what I'm about to say.
We're so late.
What's up, good people? Greetings, grand rising, and all that good stuff. Good to see you all again.
I see you too. You're not in the chat today, I see. You're not in the chat.
Nah, I stay out there in chats, man. Shout out to the people in the chat.
For sure. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Me in that joint.
Yeah, we look
starting to load up
early.
Yeah. Let's get everybody in here. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Right here, doctor.
That's right. Tell a friend, tell them again and again and again.
Y'all shuffling in here like y'all late for church now. Come on in there. Hurry up, find you a seat. The usher got one waiting for you. Come on.
Absolutely.
Y'all got to sit up front so the reverend can stare you down.
And you can't fall asleep.
Can't fall asleep. Not on that front pew.
That's my favorite activity in the church. Fall asleep in the back.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
Hey, I was in the choir for a quick second till I fell asleep a couple of times. They was like, nah, you got to go.
While you were in the choir?
You were singing in the choir?
You know, your mom wants you to do something. And it's like, go join the choir. Be an usher. Then I tried to be an usher, and I was like, it's too much standing. Stand up guy, but come on.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, I catch y'all later.
These all sound like legitimate gripes, by the way. That
I
agree. Regarding the church services. I
know this is a little old, Kim, but I finally did see the Rick James documentary.
Hey,
yes.
Okay.
Oh, man.
What are your thoughts?
He was a bad dude. Both. Yeah. I mean that both musically and lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like he was. He did push it, but Rick James was another musical genius. Like I didn't notice some of the early stuff, like his folk years, his folk rock years or whatever.
When he was jamming out with Neil Young up in Canada, up in Toronto.
Right. And people would not have expected that. And that early music was not sort of reminiscent of when he got into the funk. He was like, that's it. That was my music. And then his battles with Prince, where I was like, hilarious. I had no idea. They said they started pulling out chords and all that kind of stuff. I was like, yo, that shit is hilarious. I could see it.
Yeah, I didn't see the documentary yet, but I do know, I've heard a little bit about that part. And that Prince was an intimidating dude to have to share stage time with,
And he accused Prince of stealing some of his act. Like he would go on and do like some kind of whoa thing, and then all of a sudden the next night Prince was doing it first when he was his opening act, and he was like, "I can't do that."
Probably did.
Oh, I would have to say definitely, because I mean, you look at Rick James and you can see elements of Prince, you can see elements of David Lee Roth. You know what I'm saying? Like I see where people totally bit off Rick James's like big, larger than life rock style persona and even his stage presence. So yeah, Rick was out here influencing everybody, man.
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely, because it happens everywhere. It happens in all fields. Activists bite each other's speeches, professors bite each other's work, lectures, everybody's riffing off of each other. So I'm sure it would happen that if you're sharing stage time, it's gonna, and they were all flamboyant.
If you see something rocking the crowd, you'd be like, I want that reaction.
Yeah, but Prince was foul though. Like Prince was biting Rick shit, and Prince was opening for Rick. So Prince would steal Rick shit. So now the next town's gonna see Prince do Rick's thing before Rick even get a chance to do his own thing.
Yeah. I'd be a little mad at that.
Yes, I'm sure.
But apparently Prince was willing to go to blows. Apparently he was willing to fight. I was like, Prince was willing to fight Rick James. Rick James is not a small dude.
So years ago, I have to leave the names out to protect the innocent, but years ago, I happened to witness a sort of speaking tour of sorts where there was a headliner and an opening speaker. And the opening speaker was quite gifted and skilled and kept noticing that from spot to spot, he would have to redo his previous intro because it would keep appearing in the keynotes presentation after the fact and cause him to have to redo to come up with something fresh, so it would not seem as though the reverse was happening. And so the off the record stuff was always this dude is biting my shit. And I was like, wow, this is so from hip hop to activism to academic lectures, this is to the rock stage, this is a persistent problem.
Meanwhile, Jared Ball is like, I don't want cats sound like me on no speaking tour. Word up. I'm gonna have to approach a nigga.
No, I have another method. My method is take the most marginal position that no one wants to side with and no one would want to repeat, and no one would be and then like you don't have to worry about somebody stealing your shit. You're like, nah, you can have that lane, man, because I don't want no parts.
You going out on that?
I want no parts of that marginality right there, bro. I need some.
You going out on that limb? I'm not joining.
Right? Nah.
What you said about capitalism? That's all
right. Yeah. It's just too many, But listen, if I could just real quick, because I know it's not on the run sheet, it's not a story. There's something I saw this morning, actually, that I just want to say very quickly. I don't want to get into the whole vaccine debate today, but or at least this moment, or at least we can, I guess. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that I saw on my beloved comedy hype channel, they did an interview with the brother Rizza Islam, and I don't know if you all follow his work at all. A very popular younger brother coming out of the Nation of Islam, and it is described as a social media influencer with his 500,000+ followers or whatever. But they got into the vaccine. He's very anti-vaccine, and they brought him onto the platform. And my only reason for wanting to bring this up right now is because my biggest concern right now, speaking of the academic and the lectures and the biting, is the methodology that people are bringing to their arguments. And we have to be very careful because he sounded very informed, but so much of what he was saying is either refuted or can be refuted or has been challenged. And yet none of the people on the panel, himself included, being medical experts or doctors in the field, were having this discussion in this debate where they were claiming that they were all out researching each other. But clearly that can't be the case. And even as I'm watching, equally in expert in these areas, I'm saying, but I'm reading, when I look up what you're saying, I'm finding so much that contradicts it. But I can't assess any more than I think you would be prepared to assess what it is that we're reading. So at some level, we all fall back into our biases, and then but it was just very concerning. And I just watched it this morning, so I just felt compelled to want to say that this morning. We all need to check our methodology, and say anyway.
I'm sorry, he was on with Mark Lamont Hill and a doctor guest, like maybe a week or so ago on one of his shows. And I think it's got to be the same brother, glasses, fair skinned or whatever. And similar, it was like when he started doing his arguments, maybe a little Kim's complexion.
I think, well, anyway, I don't want to,
I'm just fair skinned.
I think he's darker than that, but the point is, it's sometimes in the eye of the beholder. I'm talking about,
I'm brown. I believe I'm brown, so.
Get on with your point, Kamal.
This is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, your analysis is way off already this morning.
So it was similar, like even though it was a doctor who I feel like the doctor didn't want to go in on him. It was like one of those, like, it's all black conversation and people trying to be extra nice to each other. And he complimented him on his ability to study the issue, but he clearly thought most of his points were garbage, but didn't want to state it like that, which allowed the dude to kind of sort of ramble on and pontificate in what seemed to be very, I don't want to say profound, but like he was articulating something that he like the way you said, like it was well researched. But even in listening to him, you could see like the structures of his argument were either some anecdotal thing that he was citing that sort of didn't say anything in mass, or he just would say, I refute that whole whatever and read this book kind of thing, which of course, what are you going to do? there's really no comeback to something like that unless you already read the book yourself and are waiting to refute it at the moment's notice, right? So it was like those kind of argument or debating skills that he brings. Like you said, he's clearly good usage of words.
He's talented.
He's that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a talented speaker kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that was sort of my point, that it's like the Lisa Bonet video a friend of mine sent me that apparently is going around from back in the day when she was on Phil Donahue and talking in the early 90s about not wanting to vaccinate her recently born Zoe, right? Mm-hmm. And River Phoenix was on there, you know, and they were and part of the argument was I read this one book. And my point to my friend was, even if she's right, this is not a methodology that we should be supporting. And I'm saying that even if because I actually think it's a bigger danger, even if the person turns out to be right, because my point is, if the entire medical establishment is this corrupt and this one book outdoes the entire medical establishment, then we're in a bigger problem than you know, if the entire medical establishment is as bad as many are claiming intentionally, then the problem is bigger than just not getting a vaccine or getting a vaccine. But what I tend to, my bias obviously is that there is a lot more nuance and context that needs to be brought to bear, and saying I read one book does not constitute a study, even if the book is correct. So that's sort of where I am I'm just really. So for instance, Brother Rizza Islam made one claim that I looked up during the thing. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying that he's citing a research from claiming something about vaccines and autism in Black children. But the person he's referencing is a psychologist who himself was referencing another study that was done using different methodology than is often used to reach conclusions about the impact of vaccines, which would lead, obviously, with a different method, you could get different results with an overemphasis on what's happening to Black children, vaccines, and autism. So my only point was, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but you clearly don't either, because you're citing someone who is himself a psychologist and not trained in the fields of study that we're doing, who is himself citing someone else's study that is itself being challenged in its methodology. And my point is, when you get into study in any field, this is how complicated and nuanced it can get. And it's just dangerous to me that somebody in a clearly articulate, intelligent way could make a profound argument that impacts a good number of people, but is itself not based on the level of research and study and expertise that I think we need to have in this field in particular. And I would argue in mine and others as well. But so anyway, that was it. I know we got to get
Dear Doctor.
I see my man Ear Doctor's ready, and I see is he back in DC?
I'm up your way. I'm up in the DMV.
Yo.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I couldn't see the Capitol, but it looked like the reflecting pool behind you.
Hey, I know out on the Beltway.
Hey, I know some preachers that read one book and they can persuade you pretty good too.
That's a good one.
I'm just saying.
True.
And my point would be, I rest my case.
Hey, it's a lot of people that can talk real good, and you can believe everything they say, just how they, But that's a whole nother debate. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and talk about. Yeah, I'm up in DC, and I talked about with Sundays we went and talked about go-go music. So I'm gonna give y'all a quick little lesson about it that I've learned, and then we're gonna come back and talk to some of these vets in the area so they can let me know. So let's get to it.
Let's get in the pocket.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah. What's good, everybody? I go by the name of the Ear Doctor, and this is the Remix Morning Show. And I'm glad y'all made it through here. We are in DC, DMV area. We rocking out. In case y'all didn't know, y'all could have came and checked me out this last Sunday. On Sundays at 8 p.m. We rocked out. And with that said, it was real good. So like I said, check it out every Sundays. We rocked out. Anyway, let me get back to it. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, hit the join button, get down with the crew right here at Black Power Media, and also go to patreon.com and drop some change if y'all can. Now, we went to DC and we talked about go-go music. Now, go-go music, let me start from the beginning. For what I learned, go-go started from this club in France where they would get rid of the DJ and just play live music. So back then, that wasn't really being done. You know, you just had the DJ playing, but this club was like, we're going to play live music, and they called it the go-go. So with that said, Smokey Robinson even went over there, and he went to this club, and he made a song about it. He saw going to the go-go. That was Smokey Robinson back there talking about then. So we take it to now with the live music and how we had bands and R&B and stuff back in the day when you had in DC, you had the Young Senators that came out with a song called Jungle. You had Black Heat that came out with a song called No Time to Burn. You had Sir Joe Quarterman who came out with a song called So Much Trouble on My Mind, and Chuck Brown who blasted the whole set down with Bustin' Loose. So you had these different bands that came together and created a whole live sound in DC. And then you had EU come around and they did their first go-go song with Curtis Blow, which was called Party Time. Party Time was a big hit that had the go-go drums in it. EU got down, and then they went to the 88 era and did the School Days movie with Spike Lee and did Doing the Butt. That went from him doing songs to Herbie Lovebug taking this whole go-go sound and taking it over to hip-hop with Salt and Pepper, Kid and Play. And then you take it earlier and move towards now, and you got DJ Cool, and you got Amiri, all these different people. Like I said, you got Chuck Brown, you got Rare Essence, you got EU, all these different crews in the DC area, and it was real dope. So that's what I learned. But what I did learn real quick from that is it's hard to play live music when you're DJing, because it's a whole nother vibe and a whole nother experience when you're there listening to live music. But you know, it was all about edutainment. So we visited the go-go music, and that's what we came up with. So now let's take it back to our Remix Morning crew and see what they know about it. All right, let's go. We gotta switch it up like this. Here we go. A little slow here. All right.
Let me tell you something, man. Let me tell you something. There's nothing better than that pocket. And if I can, let me just show you how real it gets when folks get out there in the spot.
In the spot. You mean
do it? I can't do it. I had a video file that I wanted to share that is now telling me is not formatted properly.
Well, let me say this real quick. Ear Doctor, I am extremely impressed with your chronology there of go-go music and the inception of go-go music.
Yeah.
Thank you. A special shout out for you mentioning the Young Senators. One of my cousins who has long passed away, his name was Calvin Charity. He was a member of the Young Senators, playing gigs around town. Eddie Kendricks for a short time used to sing lead for the Young Senators. And yes, all those were the forefathers of what eventually became go-go music when Chuck put it all together in the pot.
I got a quick question. So, did Marvin Gaye, being out of that area, ever do any type of go-go music?
Not that I'm aware of. Okay. No.
But just a couple things real quick. One, I want to encourage people to go to it's one of the videos on our Black Power Media channel. It's a classic interview that I did, like a mini documentary or extended interview about go-go music some years ago that features Dr. Tahir Ahmadi, and you know, other go-go Mickey is interviewed in it. There's several, we went to the show, we get but one of the things that just in terms of the chronology and the history that's important is that Chuck Brown wanted to find a way to have the live bands be able to compete with the increasing influence of the DJ. in this coming up in the 70s, where the DJ could, as you know, obviously can blend records back and forth and keep a constant beat and party going for hours. So the live band community that Chuck Brown was obviously a part of was saying, we need something that can compete with that. And then one day he heard a breakdown in Grover Washington Jr.'s Mr. Magic, which is where you get that standard, what is now the classic, because you were just playing basic go-go pocket that Chuck Brown would hit in between each song. So that if you go to a go-go, it don't stop. The party don't stop. So they go from one song and then they get into the pocket and then they start another song. And that was all in part done to compete with the encroaching influence of the DJ. And today it's just, I mean, it's this.
That was the one thing about DJing a whole hour of it. It started sounding the same. The beat never changed. The pocket was the pocket, and I was like, all right.
In part, that's the beauty of it. In part, that's the now when I've rapped with some of my musical and Africana experts like Dr. Scott Brown and others who argues that go-go is the last real authentic African music being created, maybe anywhere, certainly in this country. But it's the trance. It's just like it's similar with house music or other. You're supposed to get into the trance, and the repetitiveness of the beat over time, you do get into the trance like state in the pocket, and that's part of the beauty of getting lost in it. But I do understand that if it's not live, if it's not in the band, with the band performing, it can be a little
and it's regional, just like how you got line dance music in New Orleans, you got house music, like you said, you got bass music down south. Certain music puts you in the trance, and it's like it's all the same all night. You hear the same when it comes to house bass music. So don't get me started. But that's a whole other class at the end, Doctor.
Just real quick, just so people know, there are different pockets and grooves within go-go, but yes, you are largely correct.
Well, you're gonna have to put me on because I catch y'all later. Peace.
All right. Right on. Definitely appreciate the ear doctor for that. I'm thoroughly unhappy that I missed his last Sundays.
Your fault. Such notifications, Jared.
Oh no, this was a schedule conflict. This was not a lack of awareness. I stay on top of BPM stuff. So, but no, it was just an unfortunate schedule conflict. But look, I know it doesn't quite spin as we used to think it did, but let's hit that globe and get to some of these news stories. This right here in the remix. Hey, I don't know what you all have lined up for this morning, but if we could, I would really love to start the news segment this morning with my new hero. I have a new hero, and some of you may have seen this. Yeah, you've been Kamal's been replaced. But you know, whenever you see now. Obviously, I'm not envious of the conditions this person is responding to or may now find themselves in response to what we're about to see. But in terms of this immediate act, it speaks to, I think, a lot of what have been many of our fantasies, having been in workplaces, and something that I'm fully in support of and in agreement with. But let's just check this out here.
All right.
This part I'm jealous of right here.
Attention Walmart shoppers and associates. My name is Beth from Electronics. I've been working at Walmart for almost 5 years, and I can say that everyone here is overworked and underpaid. The attendant policy is bullshit. We are treated from management and customers poorly every day. Whenever we have a problem with it, we're told that we're replaceable. I'm tired of the constant gaslighting. This company treats their elderly associates like shit. To Jared, our store manager, you're a pervert. Greta and Kathy, shame on y'all for treating your associates the way you do. I hope you don't speak to your families the way you speak to us. Shout out to Cominique, Patty, Chardell, and so many more. Walmart doesn't deserve y'all. Fuck management and fuck this job. I quit.
Hell
Boom.
yes.
Damn.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
as I continue on the Jared name rehabilitation,
Yeah, you need to do that.
tour,
And
after
Jared,
the Subway
you ain't
dude,
shit.
Jared Kushner, all these dudes out here. You're right. She said Jared ain't shit, but I love that, and I'm sorry, obviously, that this is what she and others are experiencing. I'm sorry that she is now out of a job. I'm sorry that others who are still there are suffering in that job. But in that moment, Beth from, what did she say? Beth from Electronics.
Electronics.
Mm-hmm.
We need T-shirts. I stand with Beth from Electronics. Like I'm, Anyway, so I just thought that was thoroughly, inspirational, and something when I've, in every job I've had a version of that.
That's the way you wanted to go out.
Oh man. People talk about if I win the lottery, I'm just going to quietly disappear. I'm like, nah, I'm going out loud. I'm walking through hallways, slapping bammers. I'm out. I quit.
There was a similar I quit moment in radio like years ago. The young woman's name was Inetta the Mood Setter. And I just remember that she did radio somewhere in Louisiana. I'm not sure if it was Baton Rouge or Lake Charles or where she was, but she got on the radio and her final words were, I quit this bitch.
Yeah, I do remember that. Another... yeah, that's right. I do remember
and
that.
That's why for media people generally they fire you after your last shift, right? You don't get to go and get back on the airways once you are made aware that your job is now close to being gone. So
that's right. Yeah, don't give me that microphone again. Like you better take it now. And don't let me back near it.
She made Best No Gangsters that she just started to do. She did it, she was like, no one expects this. And that took a minute. So I ran over and was like, get her off. So she did whatever she did. She planned out well. She had the TikTok video running. She was ready for it.
She was ready.
This was way before TikTok, y'all. This was, like I said, there might be a clip of this floating on YouTube.
You talking about that one? He's talking about Beth from Electronics.
Oh, Beth, yes. Beth was ready for this. Beth knew she had a viral moment, ready for blast off. Like Beth was prepared. Beth had a script. Did you see her reading?
I want to have my phone live streaming as I'm walking down the hall. I quit.
Knocking off books off of people's desks. You didn't write that book anyway. I know you had a ghostwriter.
Right. Your plagiarized nonsense. Anyway, so that was that. I was like, that's a brilliant, beautiful way to start the day, because unfortunately you never know, especially with the news, if it's going to get any better. So listen, so the other day, I know I had brought up a story about the underreported or unreported initially internal study from Facebook about its own product, Instagram's impact on young girls in particular. Well, more has occurred, including a whistleblower. If folks, I'm not sure if folks are not aware, a whistleblower has testified yesterday, I believe, about this, and I thought we should check out a little bit of what was said here.
Picture of Facebook as a company knowingly disseminating false information that could incite anger and hatred among users, negatively impact teenage mental health, and even stoke ethnic violence. The goal, she says, to increase the time users spend on Facebook and Instagram actively engaging with posts, and then potentially being exposed to more advertising which they would click on. This is how Facebook makes its money.
I saw Facebook repeatedly encounter conflicts between its own profits and our safety. Facebook consistently resolved these conflicts in favor of its own profits. The result has been more division, more harm, more lies, more threats, and more combat. In some cases, this dangerous online talk has led to actual violence that harms and even kills people.
What makes Haugen's testimony so important is that she has the documentation to back up her claims. Tens of thousands of internal pieces of paperwork that reveal Facebook's knowledge of the consequences of its actions, allegedly in its pursuit of profit. Haugen called for more transparency and oversight over the algorithms Facebook uses.
Is like the Department of Transportation regulating cars by only watching them drive down the highway.
Facebook has called Haugen's testimony selective and misleading, but both Republicans and Democrats on the committee expressed skepticism of the company's truthfulness.
They knew what they were doing. They knew where the violations were, and they know they are guilty.
Mark Zuckerberg ought to be looking at himself in the mirror today. And yet, rather than taking responsibility and showing leadership, Mr. Zuckerberg is going sailing.
But there is an active debate underway about how much regulation to impose. After all, who is going to decide what is inflammatory speech and what is simply information that the powerful don't want the rest of us to hear? A starting point, though, does seem to be more transparency. Transparency about the algorithms Facebook is using to make us angry in the first place, and also more information about all the data Facebook is harvesting about all of us.
There was actual empirical data supporting all of these downstream harms of the way the platform works. Those issues that are really at the integration of both, the way data is used, this what we call surveillance capitalism, where the user is tracked everywhere they go, and then that data is mined and used to target them and try to get them to engage.
Haugen has filed several complaints with the Securities and Exchange Commission, alleging with her documentation that Facebook has misled its investors and Congress in the past. And she's clear, it is founder, chairman, and CEO Mark Zuckerberg who controls Facebook's behavior. Shihab Ratansi, Al Jazeera, Capitol Hill.
So that's one part. And if I could just quickly show, because in response to that, this story has come out because in Ad Age, one of the industry marketing journals, what Facebook is telling advertisers about the 60 Minutes whistleblower is, so she also went on 60 Minutes and was telling the same thing. But just quickly here, that Facebook moderates offensive content that breaks its own policies, revealing a program that allowed violating content to go unchecked if it came from high-profile accounts. So that was one thing I wanted to add to the story, that if you have a high-profile account, apparently they're less likely to surveil and seek to limit or impact what you're saying on these social media platforms, which obviously lends itself to all kinds of issues with paid social influencers, et cetera. The scrutiny on Facebook's business is turning into a problem for the advertising community at large. The major ad agencies work with thousands of brands that are trying to understand the impact of Facebook's policies. Facebook serves 10 million plus brands that spent almost $85 billion last year on its platforms. So this was another thing I wanted to raise in terms of even what how that story reported it. To what extent is Mark Zuckerberg, even as the owner and clearly making plenty of money from it, in control of Facebook? To what extent are these social media platforms not only under the purview of the national security state, but also the advertising community, which many within media studies would argue actually drives all the content in our popular commercial media? Just quickly finishing up here, Facebook leadership about issues affecting brands, including how it guarantees that advertisers appear in safe environments on the network. So in other words, this Omnicom Media Group, one of the major ad buying conglomerates, or not conglomerates, but ad buying collectives, is saying its clients need to be guaranteed that they have a safe social media or safe environment on these social media networks, meaning that they want the spaces scrubbed or cleaned for their own benefit, which could mean any number of different things for any number of different political uses or otherwise. And then lastly here in August, this I thought was very interesting, something that hasn't seemed to get a lot of attention, at least that I'm aware of, that the Federal Trade Commission refiled its case that claimed Facebook acts as a monopoly in social media. So, which I think is a very interesting bit of this that doesn't get a lot of the discussion, that, you know, to what extent, you know, is Facebook or even Twitter heading towards monopoly? And then who's really in control of it? And clearly the advertisers want it to be used for certain reasons. The state and its involvement was not mentioned in any of these stories, but I think is a key piece in all of this, given their involvement in social media. You know, anyway, so I just thought that was all pretty fascinating.
You know, I think that this story is extremely important and very valid. But when I look at that performance that happened in front of Congress, right, from each of those senators who probably receive donations from Facebook and big tech lobbies, right, Republicans and Democrats alike, clutching their pearls. Oh my God, Facebook this, Facebook that. All of them are still going to utilize the platform. All of them still are hoping to grow their grow their own individual platforms on Facebook. And truly, like, how does Facebook differ from ExxonMobil or from Coca-Cola or from McDonald's? Like, this is a story that is played out so often in this country, that these big corporations continually place profits over people. All of them do. Every single one of them do. And it's only periodically that they'll get, you know, taken to task or have the spotlight put on them. And then all of a sudden it'll just go back to what it was. Because I seriously do not see Facebook turning over their proprietary algorithms to federal regulators. Like, I just don't see that happening. I see them pouring shit tons of money into lobbying to make sure that that never happens, which is just what oil and gas regulation has done, which is just what a lot of bad actors in terms of corporate players in this country do all the time. You know, our leaders are feckless. They can be bought, they can be sold, and they themselves will continually place profits over people. They don't need the corporations to help them keep doing it.
What I find interesting is when I look at Facebook, and I know Facebook is a little bit on the downslide in America, but when you look at everything that Facebook is, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and how it's used these days. So it's not just, I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Facebook is not just a social media company where you go, you know, put up your pictures of your kids or your dog or whatever. People are now using Facebook not only for this to advertisers, but individuals for their business purposes. The Facebook companies for communications. You know, WhatsApp is probably one of the largest ways in which people communicate with each other. There's the banking apps or cash apps that they started to develop. There's different ways that Facebook is now so insidious in terms of people's lives. And again, not just here in the United States, but its growth is actually more overseas than it probably is over here, because now young people are using some of the other social media outlets that Facebook may also own, including Instagram. And so all that, to me, you know, I look at it a little bit like Ma Bell, right? Ma Bell at one point, you know, was the communications, you know, with the telephone. That's how people communicated. And at some point it did get broken up, right? And so whether or not Facebook could be treated sort of as that trust that could get broken up. And I agree with you, Kim. I don't think the energy is really there beyond talking points to do anything about what Facebook represents. I think that the power of the industry, the power of it, and the way they switch it around, you know, is still ripe for a fight in America. I think some other places may go further, but I think here it's different. And so the things I worry about is about the overall power it has in people's lives, and you know, our inability apparently to sort of deal with these social media companies in a way. I guess our inability to deal with these social media companies in a way that gets beyond the surface thing that they like to put out to us, that they're only here to have us reach our families and stuff like that. It's like, no, you're that, like Kim said, that's the very nature of your purpose, is to keep our eyeballs glued. And you only care about that. You only care about that because that's the way the system works. That's the way the cycle works. It's the way commercial TV works before, and that's now the way social media works beforehand. Everything else is just a wraparound to get us to see advertisement, because that's where you get your advertisement dollars from, and that's what you care about.
I also think the only thing I would want to add to what you both have said is that I think it's but I think that the same results are desired by those who have, I think, at this point, more power over Facebook than even Zuckerberg. And that's what I meant. But when I'm saying when I'm focused on the advertisers and even the state itself, that they would also use their lobbying and other efforts to make sure that the proprietary algorithms are protected, et cetera, because they don't want anybody regulating that either, because they use it. So for all the discussion over the last couple of years of Russia influencing and, using, so they use it way more than Russia or anybody else to manipulate us and push us in certain directions. And that's why that's why I like to follow the advertising age and other marketing rags, because they're very explicit. I mean, that whole article was only focused on what advertisers were concerned. They were like, just make sure nobody's cussing or yelling at somebody on a page where my ad shows up. And then the intelligence community is well, we already know at least some of what they've been doing, but they have a whole other set of interests with Facebook that go beyond what Mark or any of the other original creators of it may have intended. And at this point, I don't think Zuckerberg, and every time I see him, to me, he looks like somebody that is not in control of his own entity. He's like, I'm just following a script so that I can keep my fat bank account and not disappear.
I think he has more power than that.
Okay, you're probably right. I'm just.
But you know what? But I also don't. I think the ad folks are lying about wanting the safe content. I think they may prefer that, but they want what the eyeballs are, and they don't want to get caught doing it, right? You know what I mean?
That's
like they want this. They'll take the safety of like non-cursing, unless they see that someone cursing has gotten 20 million more views. And then they want to seep into that, but they just don't want to get caught doing it, right? I think that's the thing is everybody,
and they don't want to be seen as supporting harmful.
Yeah. So if everybody, when everybody's shutting up about it, no one's causing an uproar, they go right back to wherever they see the most eyeballs are, and then once you catch them, then they go like, oh no, how we didn't know? How did we know we were going to be over there? We had no idea. So let's move us over here. But they're searching for the eyeballs, right? So that's really what they're after.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, Kim, I'm not sure if there was something you wanted to get to.
Yes.
Please
Absolutely.
jump on in.
So I don't think I have an article to support, but I can just tell you about it. As we don't have to go through this performance of trying to share the screen. Y'all just like to laugh at my expense. But anyway, so I'm going to tell you guys how the oil pipelines is very much an issue that Black America needs to be concerned about. So we see that there's this tremendous oil spill that is affecting the pristine waters off of Huntington Beach down in Southern California. Over 120,000 gallons have been reported to have spilled from this oil pipeline that some reports say is spilling because it was struck by an anchor. Okay, well, the reason notwithstanding as to why this oil is now pouring into the Pacific Ocean, we need to take cues from our indigenous brothers and sisters who have been putting their bodies on the line in order to stop a lot of these pipeline projects, because all the oil that flows through these pipelines, be it at the floor of the Pacific Ocean or flowing under the headwaters of the Mississippi up in northern Minnesota, a lot of these oils, these pipeline oils, are coming towards refineries that are in Black and brown communities. And in addition to the refineries emitting toxic, harmful chemicals into the air to the immediate residents in the immediate vicinity who live near these oil refineries. In some cases, people literally only live yards from oil refineries. But again, pretty much exclusive in Black and brown communities. But the effects of the toxic chemicals in the air can be experienced as far away as 10 miles away living from the refinery. So in addition to the refineries themselves being bastions of toxicity, spewing it all into the air, into the water, and seeping into the land, these refineries also have some propensities to explode. There was a big refinery explosion in Rodeo, California, and then there was another, I believe, in Richmond, California. And a lot of times these oil companies, Chevron, ExxonMobil, et cetera, the people that are operating these refineries do very little to make sure that those in the community are the effects of these chemicals are minimized. So people, Black and brown people that live in proximity to these oil refineries experience higher levels of respiratory ailments. Children are born more so with birth defects. We're talking about asthma. We're talking about cancer clusters. So when we see the story about the pipeline bursting in the Pacific, we have to understand how that connects very much to us and to our communities. And when we see that the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline in northern Minnesota, which indigenous water protectors have been resisting against for 8 years, it started pumping this week, okay? And that was approved by the Biden administration. This is a transnational oil pipeline that's coming down from the Alberta tar sands in Canada and is going to come through these headwaters of the Mississippi, which if this particular pipeline bursts, which inevitability would tell us that all these pipelines eventually do burst and rupture and spill, that could contaminate the water coming all the way downriver from, again, Minnesota, and y'all know where the Mississippi runs, right? All through the middle of the country. So this could have a tremendous impact. It's already having a tremendous impact on Black and brown communities that live in proximity to these oil refineries. But in addition to the air and the land being permanently tainted, we are at very, very high risk for the water being permanently tainted as well. So the struggle and the fight against these oil pipelines is very much a Black folks issue. So I just wanted to say that.
Right on. I just keep thinking. I thought that Obama had been pushed left on this issue, and that Biden was going to be pushed farther left on this issue, and yet here we are. It's
well,
crazy.
Like for every pipeline that gets canceled, more continue to be authorized, right? So they did cancel the Dakota Access Pipeline, but this is after it already spilled. You know what I mean? Like it already spilled oil in South Dakota near the Oglala Sioux Nation and the Standing Rock Sioux Nation. But for Joe Biden, who continually talks about the issue of climate change being one of urgence, very, very urgent for our future, nothing about his policies indicate that that's the direction that he truly wants to go, because you can't be serious about climate change and you're still authorizing and digging pipelines, right? And still burning fossil fuels. You're not fucking serious, okay? Yeah. You're the opposite of serious, actually. You're really playing in our faces. So Democrats need to be held to account for that so much, because they prop themselves up so much as being the party of climate change and climate concern and understanding the Green New Deal and all this shit. And it's like, all right, man, what exactly are y'all doing about this? Because this just looks like games to me.
Yeah, performative politics, and it's all about what they can get away with, right? So it's exactly what you said. Until and again, going back to even Facebook, until something happens, the day-to-day stuff that happens, if it's kept at a low level, too many people aren't complaining. People don't even know how they're getting these diseases or these different things which impact them, their health from birth. If that's not being talked about or risen to a certain level, then it's business as usual, right? Flint would have been business as usual in terms of the contamination of the water, until little by little, more evidence came out. People started raising it up as an issue, and it wasn't like people heard right away, right? It took time for it to bubble up as an issue, and then once it did, then all of a sudden, after the damage has been done, folks want to talk about either it was a mistake, who knew, how could we possibly have known all this kind of stuff, and that's continually what's applied to.
And they still can't drink their water, by the way, either.
And they still can't drink their water, yeah. But that's kind of like the industry motto, right? It's even their fixers. That's their motto. It's like, you keep doing your bad stuff until you get caught, and then you figure out how you're going to pay a fine, and that's usually what happens, right? Folks pay a fine if it gets big enough, and then but they keep on with their performative art, and they keep going. No one is really charged with any criminal act, right? No one. We had the huge disruption of economics and people hiding money and stealing money and taking money. No major company, no major corporate finance company was charged with any criminal acts. People paid fine. In fact, they got more money. And this, and so similarly, if they can get away with it, they're going to do it.
But at some point, I mean, I'm sorry not to cut you off, Jared, but like, I mean, we're talking about stuff that is unfixable, right? Like you cannot clean the water once the oil has hit the water, right? You cannot clean tar sands out of drinking water. And it's like, there is no accountability, literally. And now I'm hoping, despite the fact it's a tragedy to the wildlife and to the ecosystem there in Huntington Beach, but that's a very wealthy white area, right? Like I saw white people on TV, rich white people talk about, they open their front doors and they got hit in the face with the smell of petrochemicals. And I'm like, good. You know what I mean? I mean, not good, but kind of good, because unfortunately it has to affect them specifically, rich white folks directly, before they will recognize this as a 20th century solution to energy that needs to go away, and it has to go away ASAP, because we are in urgent times right now. And if the water keeps getting fucked up, then I mean, what is the future for the rest of the country, or for the world for that matter?
So I know we got to get to Ear Doctor. So I'm hoping when we come back to start the next hour, we can pick up with this story, because there was something. Welcome, God Created Black, and we encourage others to join God Created Black in becoming members of the channel. So thank you very much. I would like us to look at a story because Dave Chappelle is back in some controversy for having made, as I'm going to interpret it for this segue purposes, this segue at least, for making the argument I'm hearing coming out right here, that crimes, particularly those against actual crimes against Black people, go unpunished, but people are canceled for crimes or arguments against other communities that are not, or I'm sorry, that are canceled for non-crimes against other communities. So I thought what he said is pretty interesting. I'd like for us to get into it a little bit, but we can do that in the next hour, because it looks like Ear Doctor's about to fight somebody. So I definitely don't want no drama. I don't want no problems.
No drama for your mama.
So I don't want to hold him up at all. So we might as well bring him up now. Yeah.
We as you can see behind me, we about to talk about some real live sports, a big event that's coming up, and I'm gonna pretty much break down.
You gonna break down something else?
He's about to break down. You talking about big time sports coming up? You must be talking about the Nation Leagues Cup. In world football, right?
No.
What's that? Never heard of that.
We're on the international break coming up this week. Big games this week. Italy, Spain, Belgium, France. It's gonna be some big stuff.
Battle of the Colonizers. What?
Dodgeball? What kind of sport we talking about? I don't understand.
Yo, anyway, what
I was
saying. Hey, you know what? I'm just gonna get to it. Now we talking about the verses. Big Daddy Kane versus KRS-One.
Right on.
Oh,
that's right.
The remix.
All right.
I
can't.
Remix.
Yeah. All right. So, what's good, everybody? Welcome back out to Black Power Media Remix Morning Show. At this time, I wanted to talk about the next verses that's going down. In case you did not know, the next verses is going to be going. Let me do it like this. In this corner, from the Boogie Down Bronx, we got no other than the man them called KRS-One. And in the other corner, we have no other than the man from Brooklyn, which they call Big Daddy Kane. Now, this versus is going to be going down on the 17th of this month. So I'm pretty hyped. I mean, I always wanted to see these two battle or go at it, but at the same time, let me give y'all a little bit of something about those two. Let's start off with Big Daddy Kane. Now, Big Daddy Kane has 7 to 8 albums. 7 to 8 albums. KRS-One with Boogie Down Production has 26 albums. Now, I was thinking about how could they go back and forth and thinking what songs could go back and forth. But really, when it talks about the first 2 albums for Kane, and then you talk about the first 3 albums for Boogie Down Production, those really the only ones that need to go back and forth. Kane, you got Raw, Smooth Operator, Ain't No Half Stepping, Set It Off, Another Victory, Wrath of Kane, I Get the Job Done, Warm It Up Kane, Enough Respect Due, and Mortal Kombat. Let's say those 10 was for Big Daddy Kane. Now we go to Boogie Down Production, KRS-One. We got South Bronx. We got Remix P is Free. The Bridge is Over. Super Ho. My Philosophy. I'm Still Number One. Jack of Spades. You Must Learn. Love's Gonna Get You. 13 and Good. And his verse off Self-Destruction. And so many more. And that's only off like 2 or 3 albums from Boogie Down Production. Not even going into the other ones that he's done on the solo. So it's kind of unfair. I would actually rather see Big Daddy Kane go against Rakim. Reason being, they both only had like a couple, their first albums had classics. And after that, Big Daddy Kane somewhat fell off because he got too R&B-ish. And that's what happened. KRS-One continued to go on, but I still think the only way Big Daddy Kane can win this battle is through a freestyle and through his stage performance, which is going to be dope because you're seeing 2 of the best MCs that know how to rock a crowd. So I'm amped. It's going to be a dope show. Let's get back to the morning crew and see what they think about it. All right? Let's go. Uh-huh. 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 Woo! You see how I'm damn near losing my breath.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think this is a bit of a mismatch. I feel like they are kind of coming from 2 different zones of rap from that particular era to be battling each other. Like, I mean, they're both extremely dope MCs, but I mean, Big Daddy has party joints. I mean, KRS-One's music is quality. It ain't party joints. So it's like,
I agree.
There is KRS is unbattleable. There is nobody that should be in a versus with him. That's my problem with the whole thing. There's nobody that deserves it. If you talk about impact on hip hop, longevity, hits, classics, quality of lyricism, stage performance. I mean, there's no category that KRS is beaten in by anybody. Real quick, I just want to say the battle between you're right. The battle between Rakim and Big Daddy should have been the one they should have done because that's who was battling in real life. They were battling in their records back in the day in real life, and a lot of us, myself included, did not know that that's what was happening. So that's the verses that should be there.
And it should be KRS versus Public Enemy or Boogie Down Productions versus.
That's a good one.
That's more like genre wise, you know what I mean? Like it's like that's more what I would get back and forth. They're like, that tops that, or that's similar but yet different. To me, like these 2 cats are like 2.
You might have just got your hip hop card back revoked. I'm
saying I would take it away, but
that was a good one.
I'll always, all I do. I'm like the professor of hip hop.
Kamal didn't even know his hip hop card got took.
I know, you know what I'm saying?
Ever since he said Cardi B was top 5, I had to take it.
Did I say that? My bad.
Yeah.
I think I was being humorous. But
that's
it's almost like to me, when folks try to do a Biggie versus Pac battle kind of thing, because I know they were rivals and all that kind of stuff. But I don't, again, Biggie's the #1 rapper of all time, but I just they're so different to me. I mean, obviously Pac got a couple of party joints, but it would be like Pac versus Nas would be a better kind of like battle and that kind of stuff than some kind of Pac versus Biggie kind of thing. So
I think Pac Biggie works.
I'm there for it. I'm actually even going to have a little 80s event for it, a screening with projector on the wall showing the event and everything. So
wow, you're going to be showing breaking in the background.
Oh, you know it. Strictly and charging $5 at the door. So come through.
There it is. And tell them you can get a bag of air too.
Okay. I'll catch y'all later.
All right.
See ya.
So real quick, man, I'm very interested in walking out on this limb with you all, or maybe by myself. When I turn around, I'll be by myself. But I'm just gonna play. Let me just play this because anyway, let me just play this clip from Chappelle. Let's just play this clip.
A lot of the LGBTQ community doesn't know the baby's history. He's a wild guy. He once shot a and killed him in Walmart. Oh, this is true. Google it. The baby shot and killed a in Walmart in North Carolina. Nothing bad happened to his career. Do you see where I'm going with this? In our country, you can shoot and kill a but you better not hurt a gay person's feelings.
Now, listen, I think Chappelle is a genius. I think he's hilarious, and I think he's largely right when he makes these points. And he did it in his last thing, in this most recent one, where he talked about, he refers to himself as transphobic, but does it in a way that I think leaves room for honest conversation in a welcoming way. And he talks about working with that community and said he's not going to tell any more trans jokes until he's laughing with that community as well. So but I think he raises a very important point. In the last special he did, where he got a lot of grief, I disagreed with a number of people on this issue around because what I see happening is that people are transposing an anti-LGBT claim or argument onto Chappelle's race first analysis, which is bothering a lot of people, which is the true origin of what is bothering people in what he's saying. And because I think the same joke he told before when he was talking about working with a TV executive and around his ability to use the F word versus the N word. And when he was told he couldn't use the F word because he was not gay, he then asked, well, then why am I allowed to use the N word? And again, the point being, why do I get to be demeaned as a Black person and nobody has a problem? But as soon as another community is demeaned, all of a sudden I'm in trouble. And I think he raises a very interesting point. And so for all the grief DaBaby is getting, maybe that he deserves, I think people are willfully ignoring this aspect of it. Now, the one thing I think Chappelle left out, and then I'll stop here, is that DaBaby wasn't just making fun of or criticizing the LGBT community. From the clips I saw, he was going way beyond that into claims about HIV and they're ruining humanity and all this other kind of stuff. So I think that goes into another category. But I think in general, a lot of the response that is involved here involves a critique of his race first analysis. So anyway, there it is. That's it.
Well, I think Chappelle is hilarious. So that's one. Let me just put that in one caveat. He's always been hilarious to me. I think his take on sort of society and all that kind of stuff has always been funny. I've always been down with comedy that's that's like not safe comedy, or just like people consider it sort of scary or dangerous, or like it's against the social norms. So there's something about that I always found funny, whatever like that. I just watched the last special, so it wasn't as funny I thought as some of his other specials, because I also think I don't go to comedy for a lot of my sort of political education per se. It's not so much, I don't think that comedians don't make witty or interesting commentaries on life and so forth and so on. But when I hear it within a comedic framework, for me, it's always about whether or not it was funny or not, and whether or not it was, some truth telling or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily, even when he's making his point, some of them I agree with. But I also think I think what I see is a community, I don't want to make a generalized statement about anybody's community, but a community that at this particular stage is putting out, it's a community that's organized and that is fighting back against what it sees as harmful, and whether or not I think some of the ways in which we're checking people are going too far, or it doesn't allow, freedom of expression and all that kind of stuff. But, I think it's an organized community that's fighting back. And so I get that, a part of that. And I think people are setting new norms that they may want everybody to accept. And I think that's going to be a societal battle about what people are comfortable with, what they agree with, and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes I agree with one thing he said was like, and from their perspective, it was like, we don't give a fuck if you agree with it or not. And I even agree with that. Like, do you, right? But I compliment Chappelle on not shying away from something that everybody else in relatively speaking, a way that's supposed to bring humor and potential light to something, as opposed to, I don't think his intent is to do harm or to obviously do like a baby, and he's like criticizing people's lifestyles and so forth and so on. But I think he is saying that there's this contradiction that somehow you're going to tell me there's a topic that's off limit for me as a quote unquote artist or a comedian. And it's almost like one of those things, like once you tell me it's off limits, well, then I'm about to go all in. And so I respect that in a sense of like, he's not backing off.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, I respect that. It's like, he's not backing off. He's continuing to go on. But I just don't think this particular special was as funny as those last two, which I did think were completely hilarious.
Well, this was his last one to get that check to fulfill the contract, right?
More. In 2 years, there's going to be another contract and some more comedy specials. This is too much money at this stage.
So I haven't seen this yet. This is my first time seeing that clip. Like I saw Dave Chappelle and the baby trending yesterday, but I didn't click on enough things to actually find the source of why they were trending. I think the premise of Dave Chappelle, or rather the framing of his whole joke setup, is off to begin with. Like, first of all, Dave Chappelle ain't never been canceled for making no gay jokes. The baby ain't been canceled for even going on homophobic and transphobic rants. So what is this sort of fantasy that these celebrities have, or, delusion, I should say, about being canceled? Oh, niggas got canceled. Show me the proof. Where's the evidence? Dave Chappelle just got another check from Netflix. He ain't been canceled. The baby's still making all kinds of appearances and tours and features on other people's projects. He hasn't been canceled. So where's the proof, first of all, that anybody has been canceled for anti-gay speech? And second of all, like Chappelle, again, I want to see the show in its entirety, but on his previous comedy specials on Netflix, for reasons that I don't understand, he seems to place himself as an antagonist to the gay community, or he always seems to like rope them into his bit somehow. And it's like, it's almost becoming like a crutch. Like, why do you keep even talking about these people, Dave Chappelle? Like, if their actions bother you so much, why is this seeming to be like a recurring theme in your comedy? You don't seem to move on. And from my perspective, Dave Chappelle is a very popular, very wealthy Black man who has achieved a certain level of status. For him to keep coming back to the gay community and his perceived power about their ability to cancel him or whomever, it's very much to me like punching down. Like, he's not punching up. Like, Dave Chappelle is not attacking any systemic power systems here or calling out anybody, in my opinion, that have a lot of the power that he claims that the gay community seems to have. So it's all very odd to me. I feel like that Dave Chappelle could take the time and use his platform to actually punch up instead of punching down onto other marginalized communities for reasons I don't understand. And I would actually prefer like a member of the LGBTQ community to weigh in on this and see what they think about it, because I look at it and I'm sort of befuddled. I'm like, what, are we doing this again? What is the reason?
It's very interesting that you use the term punching down, because that's one of the things that he actually critiques in his comedy special as a talking point against him, is that people say that in his comedy, he is punching down by doing jokes about or in reference to LGBTQ communities. So I think that's a very interesting, and he has his own response. I don't remember it verbatim or whatever. But I'm not here to think or suggest I know why Dave Chappelle is doing what he's doing, except to say that I think part of his comedy is to suggest that there's nothing off limits in terms of talking about something that could be perceived as different or funny or needs to be talked about. There's no sacred cows. And I mean, he does some jokes on Martin Luther King and fellatio in here, which I think people would be like, what the fuck? If it wasn't talking about,
man, don't you remember in Barbershop, like they got on Cedric the Entertainer for calling Martin Luther King a hoe? You know what I mean? Like, okay, that might have been edgy
Rosa
10
Parks
years ago.
just sat down. Yeah.
Huh?
But again,
the joke that he just said that Rosa Parks just sat down. She like, why are we like all she did was sit down?
Like,
and the question becomes whether or not
the gay community is not edgy. That's not a sacred cow. That's actually very old. It's tired and it's trite. Like, I mean, the gay people have been the butt of comedians' jokes for the advent of comedy. Like, I mean, how long? Like, how much longer are we going to find, experiences or shit that the gay people have to say, like, as fodder for jokes? Like, it's lazy to me.
But the question for me is then, is it the same thing could be said about the Black community, right? The only community who's newly being pillared or talked about in certain jokes would probably be like white straight communities over the last, Richard Pryor days. Like, that's only like a 30 or 40 year period. Prior to that, they controlled completely the narrative of what was considered funny or not funny. Our particular comedians have never moved off the topic of like nigga jokes, lazy jokes, big lips jokes, the difference between Black and white jokes. That's a constant refrain in Black comedy, which is obviously has its origins in minstrel comedy about Black people, right? Whether or not it's now taken to a point where it's done a little differently, or it's more edgy, or it's considered funnier, or just like it's an inside joke because it's about us. Although when you perform it on stage, nothing is really an inside joke because it's a mass audience that gets to see it. But that stuff has been since verbatim, and you're right. Like, no one, but there is a thing, like, if a white comic says something similar about Black people these days, and that white comic potentially can suffer backlash, right? And I think that's similar to what it can happen, even if we're saying that there's not a lot of evidence of it. There's people who do walk lightly around, and maybe for good reasons, right? Certain things that they'll say about another community that they may not be a part of, because they're scared that they may be a backlash or so forth. And I'm usually just of the option of, when I hear comics, again, it's different strokes of different folks. But I'm like, for me, if it's funny, well, put it like this: people have a right to say it, particularly for me, that's comedy, and it's not like a political speech, because for me, it's about whether or not it's funny or not, or it's humorous enough.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, we don't hear as much fat jokes as we used to hear, right? Like, at certain points, some of these themes do get tired and they get worn out. And really, it takes the genius that I think Chappelle is comedically. This leaves me really disappointed in him, because I think he's capable of more. Like, if he got up there and told 30 minutes worth of fat jokes, everybody would be angry about that. And the same is not said for other communities. So
I'm not mad at fat joke. I know, and people don't like.
You can't do
fat. Why can't you do fat jokes anymore?
If you're fat, you can do fat jokes.
There's light skin jokes. There's fat jokes. There's big head jokes. There's bald jokes. There's short jokes. I mean, again, within the framework of comedy, right? I think we have to laugh at our foibles and be able, because then to me, the other danger
at someone else's expense if that's not your experience.
So you can only tell that's fat joke if you're fat.
But
Yes.
So as I no, I don't agree with that.
I do.
But part of Chappelle's approach that I think has to be understood, whether we agree with it or not, is that he's saying he defends all comics to say any and everything. He defends racist comics. He defends anybody, conservative political comics. His whole point is anybody should be able to make fun of anything and say anything on stage. If you don't like it, then you deserve to be able to be critical of it. So, I don't see him as picking on the LGBT community or punching down. I see him as responding to the zeitgeist. And in this moment, that community justifiably is raising its voice on all issues and is involving itself in to Kamal's point, in a very organized way in many different issues. I don't always agree with the way they intervene as a so-called overall community, to the extent that that's possible to define. And I think that some of the nuance that he draws out is legit for a comedian. And in the last one, he also drew fire for his criticism of the so-called feminist movement or popular feminism. So
which he does again in this one.
Right. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see him as just picking on this particular group. And then I also think part of his point, I don't think he says it this way, but I think to the way I've interpreted part of his point and others who agree with him, and I don't know where I'm still working out my own conclusion on this, is that I don't think he sees himself as punching down to the LGBT community. I think he sees them as having equal or more power and in the moment. And I certainly would agree that segments of the LGBT community, particularly rich white men, have that much more organized influence over the national conversation around these issues, which I think should not mean that they're off the table. But in general, I don't think it would be appropriate to tell comics or anyone that anything is off limits, and that they can't talk about something because they're not part of that group. I think that would not only, I think it would destroy the art, and I think it would hurt broader conversation. We can't have conversations that only are led by people or only involving people of that particular category.
That's the problem, though. Yeah. But that's the problem, though. People are speaking on communities that are not from them communities. And if people that, for example, Dave Chappelle, who has a very large voice, large following, his voice gets heard more than the other people that claim to come that are from that community. You understand? So like I just want evolution. That's it. Like I'm not interested in hearing 20th century comedy in the 21st century. Like I want these comics to evolve and do better and tell better jokes. And like I will look at this special. I haven't seen it yet. But you know, I laugh at Chappelle. I laughed at him more when I was younger. I laugh at him a lot less now that I'm older and intend to consider more people's perspectives outside of my own. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
I'll see.
Two quick things. I think I do agree with you, Kim. Well, the two things, like one, I think this particular special is a little too preachy and a little less funny because he's trying to, in essence, he's trying to wrap up in a bow and tie, you know, what his prior specials in terms of some of the pushback, let's say, he's gotten, like what he was trying to say. And I think that leads to a certain preachiness that's creeping into his comedy that he thinks is pontificating or analysis, which I think maybe is a bit much for like, okay, you're going to give you a bit much for me when I'm looking for comedy. So that's just my own interpretation. But two, I think the other thing is that, you know, in terms of talking about the dynamic of race, class, sexual orientation, you know, there should be a pointing out of like, yeah, LGBTQ communities have not been allowed to, right, and have not risen to the stardom of a Dave Chappelle or other straight comics, right? And you can't just say, you know, oh, it's not one that's funny yet, because then that's the same bullshit argument that they're used with us. It's folks are not getting the promotion, the deals, they're not allowed to work their ways up way in club. And that may be happening now more than ever than in the past, but there's still that limitation or exactly on who gets to have access to the mic in a way that allows the different ideas, even through a comedic lens, to sort of come out there and even to challenge the comedic lens of a Dave Chappelle, right? You don't get that. There is no sort of comic at the level of a Chappelle or other straight male comics. Again, this is an industry that is still dominated mostly by straight males, and it's an industry that straight white males who are not as funny as a lot of the straight black males have time over time dominated. And it's only recently that now you're allowed to have more than one black comic who gets to be at the sort of forefront of what's considered funny or the leader of the pack. You know, it's only now that we're getting to a point where now you can have two or three, right, at one time. But that's also a part of the sort of the racialized history and the sexist history in terms of the country that limits the amount of Black women, LGBTQ community and comedians who can raise to that certain level and have that certain notoriety as their white male counterparts.
Well, as you all planned it, you've left no time for me to respond because the ear doctor is standing by. So well done to the two of you. And let's move on to, no, I'm just playing. Anyway, I know the ear doctor's ready. We got to get to him, but I just look forward to having this conversation more and going on. So thank you both very much. What's up, sir?
Hey, listen, I would, that was a good special. I watched it last night too. And I love the fact that artists got to be artists. You got to be able to clown stuff. You got to be able to have fun and make funny stuff. Listen, I don't know how to pronounce a lot of words. Do I get mad because somebody says, yo, you can't spell blah? No.
Yeah, but are you making fun of people who can't speak? You understand? Like, no, because that's not the community you come from.
It depends on how it's done. how it's made relatable to other people, and also including that person into the, like how he did it, it was masterful. He actually included the people that he was talking about in his conversation and how he got to learn from them. So I encourage y'all to watch the special. It was good to me. Like I said, some people are beige. Like I'm gonna always say, like, you know, my two brothers out here are beige. They get brown. It. It's funny. Brown. You know what I'm saying? But they ain't all like getting in their feelings like, oh, he called me beige.
I'm brown.
Man, we gotta get over all this.
Brown.
Because you're beige, nigga. What this?
I wish Kim's rules applied. I wish Kim's rules applied when I went to see what's my man's name years ago? What was his name? That comedian Talent. When I saw the comedian Talent years ago in Norfolk, Virginia. You don't know. He had a name for a while. He's still somewhat known. I don't know. Anyway, but the point is, this very brown-skinned brother put the spotlight on me as the beige one in the room. So Kim's rules didn't apply then because he was clearly too dark to be making fun of me.
Listen,
the good news is
that's 20th century comedy, right, Jared? That shit needs to be left in the 20th century, right?
No. But my point is,
there's no talking about anybody. I'm sorry,
but my point. But the good news is the spotlight led to a very good conclusion for me at the end of that evening. So sometimes, you know, you can put the joke on me, put the light on me, because somebody else is going to appreciate having seen me as well and want to, you know, maybe get to know a brother a little bit. So
you got like a romantic hookup out of being talked.
I absolutely did.
Yo, Kim
came up. It was like after the fact. It was like I saw what happened.
I think the bigger point is, what could be considered. You know, there's demarcation. What are the demarcation lines, if any? Right.
The demarcation lines is be funny, nigga, and get better. Be smarter. Elevate your comedy. Let's grow. Let's evolve.
All right, Kim.
You understand?
Wait a minute. Kim.
Something funny that others won't find funny, and that's not a reason to say that they shouldn't say it. It's just a reason to say that you're not going to listen to that comedy anymore.
Check this out. Fart jokes are the oldest jokes in the world, but it can still be told now in a way where it's still funny. Like you just get in a relationship. When's the first time you know when to fart in front of your girl? It can still be funny.
Ear doctor, the reason why fart jokes are funny is because everybody farts. Right, like the farts,
and everybody can get joked.
Nah, Joe, because certain people have way more privilege in this society, dog. Like it now had it been a light-skinned comedian put the spotlight on a dark-skinned man in the audience and started ripping dark-skinned jokes, that had been fucked up, and it was no less fucked up because it was Jared. But I mean, people, you would have been looking at the situation a little bit differently, right? Because we can understand what the power dynamics, so to speak, are in certain situations. So
I get it. Doesn't it matter how it in terms of the art form? Isn't it almost as important as how it's done? Obviously, if somebody is just ranting and slurring, then that's not funny in any situation, right? If you're just pointing and whatever. The point of comedy is a lot of it is like whether or not you can make people laugh at their own foibles or laugh at the things that you do in your own private life.
That's why we call them a genius.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's part of what the funniness is. It's like whether or not you can.
If you can pull it off,
I'll give you all a perfect example, and I'm gonna let your doctor do his thing. Okay, right. in the Nutty Professor, which I'm sure everyone has seen, which version? The Dave Chappelle, Eddie Murphy version.
Okay.
Dave Chappelle was in that movie, and they were in a comedy club, and Eddie Murphy and his prosthetics as Professor Clump was in there, and Dave Chappelle as the comedian on the stage started ripping fat jokes, and everybody could feel how fucked up that Dave Chappelle, as the comedian, made Professor Clump feel for pointing him out and pointing out all of his shit with his fat, right? Fucked up. Like, that's fucked up.
Kim,
like,
that's
at
not
a certain
the same,
point, you have to stop making people feel fucked up. You can be funny without making people feel fucked up.
That is a totally inappropriate comparison to what Chappelle is doing. No, but that's my point. What you're talking about is an exaggerated attempt to be hostile with someone in the audience. Chappelle is not doing that with his routines.
Well, I need to see it. I need to see it. I haven't seen this particular thing. And let me just say this real quick. On the YouTube comedy joint that he did, when Dave Chappelle did a whole bit about Christopher Dorner, I thought that was genius. Like, I thought that was actually one of the most funny, smart, thought out things. And I want him to do more shit like that and less about, whatever about him, this fantasy he has about him being canceled by gay people.
But watch the special. You understand?
That's not what he was saying, and I don't think that. And anyway, all right.
But he said that in a previous special.
That's what I'm saying. That. Watch the special.
No, he didn't say.
He says that people are attacking him because of such and such, but he's not. I don't think he's going as far. I don't think Dave Chappelle does not think he is being canceled. I think he he's getting awards.
He was joking about what would eventually come to everybody.
Yeah.
That there's a potential cancellation coming for everybody. So he wasn't saying he was being canceled, and he was raising in the previous episode or edition, he was doing what I saw him doing in Microcosm in this clip. He was raising questions about the difference is in ways the LGBTQ plus community is being treated versus the Black community. And in that regard, maybe as an individual comic, he may have some privilege and power, but as a community, I don't accept that Black people are are punching down when raising criticisms about anybody. There is no down from Black America. So
Black gay America and black gay.
But that's not what he's not. But that's not what he's not denigrating them.
Go watch the special, and then we'll come back and talk about it. All y'all people that's out there, and
I like this. Let's continue with this one. This is a good conversation.
Yes, sir. Let's get to it.
Do your thing. The remix.
Listen, what other morning show you gonna go to and hear people debating about rappers, about comedians, about everything, and even politics? Come on, man. We do this right here. This is Black Power Media. In case y'all didn't know, make sure y'all tell a friend and tell a friend. It's on every Tuesday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. With that said, we're going to get into a artist spotlight, also a Black Power Media flashback. So we're going to go to a flashback and put the artist spotlight on one particular brother that, like they said, actually, what Wesley Snipes said about Dr. John Henry Clark, you can lose your sight, but gain your insight. So with that said, I'm gonna show you a MC that came on the Renegade Culture Show that actually doesn't have sight, but still has insight when it comes to the mic. So let's go to it.
So we're gonna do something special tonight, right? And so instead of cutting and letting my man do his song, what he said is that he wants us to throw out some words.
Yes.
And then he's going to start rocking on it, right?
Yes.
All right.
You want that beat or you want it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
You checking out Renegade Culture. Hey, we got so many goddamn shows. I'm about to say you checking out the this, the that. But we at Renegade Culture tonight. We live and direct with my man Question. He about to bust them down.
Yes.
Let's
Bring
go,
that beat.
Question.
Bring that beat.
Let's go.
Hit it, Question.
Yeah. Renegade shit, y'all know what the fuck going on. We finna drop right into this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming and I'm busting. These people mad at me cause I'm looking and I'm cushing. They love what I'm coming with and they see us crushing. We waking and baking, they know they can't stop the puffing. We keep the Mary Jane on us. I give a fuck about what they hating, no complaining. I wake up and I'm trying to stack up all these payments. I'm blazing off and I'm hitting the space station. Now watch me change it. They want me rearrange it. Throw words at me as I come in one take this. Freestyling off the top of the brain. It's easy. Can't nobody change it. Cooling and I'm kicking and I'm straight maintaining. Vibing and relaxing and moving this revolution. They love the way I do it. I hit them with this pollution like poison. Can you hear my voices? I've been manifesting all my dreams from my choices. Renegade. Young Stoner Kid on this Renegade podcast and I'm finna blast. And I got a lot to hash. They told me to stop kicking it, but I keep coming leveling up my business. Getting all these digits in at least 6 figures, bitch. With this intellect as I interject. Let me come in with some different shit as I get respect. Pause for a second just to catch my breath. Represent for East Point to my fucking death.
Pornhub.
Yo, I'm not on no Pornhub. I'm in the fucking club with a fucking dub. You can throw anything at me and I'm finna catch it and I'm finna bat it. So I'm just straight relaxing, maxing and stacking my rackies up to the ceiling. I'm chilling, getting a milli, a billy, and then a trillion.
Black Thought.
Secure this bag for my children. Shout out Black Thought. I know the way that he kills it. Eminem one of the goats when it comes to these lyrics.
Yeah. So as you can see right there, that was Questions ATL. Check him out. And he was on Renegade Culture. That was the Liberals Love the Police. So check out that episode. And now let's get back to the host of the Remix Morning Show, y'all. All right. Yeah.
If y'all didn't know that brother was, look who joined
in the building.
Oh, he got the locks down and shit like that.
Hey, look what the Panther drug in. What's good, y'all?
I think it's the cat, not the Panther.
Hey, Panther's cat. What up? How y'all doing?
But you know, like that dude, like, you know, he was, for folks who didn't no pun intended, couldn't see, it was that he's actually blind. Mm-hmm. And the ear doctor was doing a word association freestyle. So
yeah, and you threw in Pornhub. Let's make sure we let everybody know that you threw that word.
Definitely threw that in.
Yeah. He said he could rhyme any words. I was like, all right, fuck with this.
Yeah. First of all, I would need to say anybody that needed the explanation about what was happening in that freestyle also needs their hip hop pass revoked. So just in case. It was clear what was happening.
I was about to say, were there questions?
Yeah, I was going. Yeah, exactly. But I did not know he was blind. So shout out that's you know.
Kamal just got his car back today. So come on.
Well, speaking of inappropriate material, because you know his mom was white, and I asked him, could I say something about his white mom, and he's like, I couldn't do jokes about his white mom.
You asked him.
I don't think.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah,
that's a problem. I don't think.
There was something funny about. There was some scenario where he said something that was funny, and I was like, yeah, you know, it was something I was like. He's like, no, I can't do that. I respected it though. I didn't do it.
You asked him, could he joke his own mama?
No, I was gonna make the joke about his mama.
Even worse.
But I didn't because I was, you know, I was smart enough to, in that occasion, to be like, yo, B, can I just got a joke about your mom? And he's like, nah.
That's a crazy question.
Well, you know, I was respectful.
This seems like it was a good day for me to come late.
Oh my goodness.
The respectful position in that is to assume you can't joke somebody's mother. That's just an assumption.
Under no circumstances.
Come out, be living dangerously out here, man.
You can always joke somebody's mom. That's the whole point.
Maybe in Brooklyn when you was
I was ranking in high school. I mean, sometimes
Kamal must really know how to fight.
That's just how it was, right?
Nah,
I mean,
Kamal must really be a master.
Come on now. Kamal went to school in New York City. You know he had a 38 on him at all times. Stop playing. He couldn't go to school without being
telling mama jokes without permission.
38-inch ruler.
Mama jokes was in jokes, B. I don't know. Y'all sensitive. Y'all some sensitive niggas.
The general mama jokes were funny. But specific to your particular mother, that's dangerous.
Yo, if your mom came to school at some like parent-teacher conference or something, and she was looking kind of whack with some that was the next day, you would catch some mom jokes. I'm sorry, but there would be some mom jokes. If she came with her leather outfit or her spotted dress, panther dress, whatever.
Here, doctor can say facts in the chat all he wants, but I'm very Johnny Dangerously speaking the 80s on this one. You might be able to do it once.
Hey yo. They clearly weren't fighting.
Brooklyn, dog. Hey, main streets of Brooklyn out here.
They clearly wasn't fighting because you weren't gonna say shit about my mother. And we used to joke and everything, but then it's like certain things is off limits. You know what I mean? Unless you got some of these after that, you know what I mean? Then that's that. So shout out to
Mama Jokes.
Shout out to y'all. Mama Jokes. What's happening, man? Good to see you good people today.
Gentlemen, let me tell y'all real quick. I happened to catch that episode of Renegade Culture that y'all told me to watch. The presidential debate with I think it was Shelley Winters and Ben Dixon and Anoa Changa, and that shit was off the rails as promised. And I really highly recommend everybody who has not caught that episode of Renegade Culture to go back and watch it, because I thought niggas was gonna stop fighting. I thought there was a lot of shit going on. It was pretty crazy. But
I literally thought Ben and Anoa were going to climb through the screen and end up in the studio. For a minute there, I was like, this is really about to happen. They're about to make the physical universe shift.
But listen though, you must understand something very important. The fact that it was not live and it was actually edited. So you really didn't see shit. Trust me. What you all saw was PG compared to the way that thing went. One day we're gonna pull it out the time capsule.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? And it's gonna be like something else.
Renegade Culture Lost Tapes edition. That's what we need right there.
Like I said, trust me, it was pandemonium. Kamau was in rare form, making threats on the set, hopping up and down. This is my show, nigga. Him and Shelley Winters. You better sit your ass down. I'm like, wow. Like,
you keep talking about wow on Kamau Kalonji. You the one who said, and I quote, Shelley, do you want to be the first nigga in the history of Renegade Culture to get his ass whooped on the show? I was like,
thank you.
He sure did. He sure did.
You see, that's the setup.
That's what I remember from that night.
See, the thing is, they want to highlight my shit, but then with them, it's like, oh, chop this up.
But that's why when I get invited to Renegade Culture, it's strictly virtual at a distance. I'm not showing up. You fuck around and get jumped in that joint. You mess around and answer a question wrong. I don't play with them.
We about to fight each other.
My ass right up here in Maryland, boy.
Hey, we be about to fight each other, so you know what the guests get. Anyway, speaking of guests and hood, I wanted to bring a brother on today. You know what I'm saying? He is a preacher. He has a church in the middle of the hood. Matter of fact, he's known as the trap pastor. You know what I'm saying? And now, for those of you that know me, I don't be trying to get into everybody's beliefs and all that type stuff, but I want to highlight folks who are in the community doing what they're supposed to do, you know what I'm saying, and representing the way, by definition, you know what I'm saying, of their faith. So I wanted to bring my man, Pastor Dr. F. Keith Slaughter on today. So we're going to spin this real quick, and I'm going to bring y'all back something straight out of the hoods of Atlanta. You know what I mean? We'll be right back. Remix Morning Show. You know we do around here.
Remix.
What's happening, my man? Dr. F. Keith Slaughter's in the building. I can't hear you, man. You on mute right now. What's happening? I see you well, but I don't hear nothing. You're all the way gone, brother. I don't know if you got your mic plugged in wrong or upside down or what's going on, but yeah, you know what? Let me see here. Yeah, we're not hearing you at all, brother. Zero. We're gonna I tell you what, why don't you log out and log back in, sign out, sign back up, sign back through, and see what we can do.
You hear me now? 1 2 1 2.
I hear you now. Look at that. Look at that.
All
See
right,
how that
there
go?
we go. I have developed some level of expertise in this with this stuff.
No doubt.
Where everybody else, man, I was where the family go? They just disappeared because I couldn't get my audio on.
Hey man, now you know what it is when I said trap. You know what I mean? Folks start clearing the airways, man.
I don't blame them. Yeah, get somewhere safe, man. Yes. Y'all out there talking about you spoke all black people. You supposed to whoop Shelley Winters' ass on site anyway. He's such a sucker. He deserved on-site smacks from black people.
On site. Hey, listen.
Because he ain't gonna do shit. He ain't nothing but a, anyway. Go ahead.
Hey,
yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Trap Pastor. You know what I'm saying? Hey, what's happening? It was good. We got my man, he's a ordained minister. Tell us about your give us a little bio and a little bit of history of who you are. Let's start with that, and then I'll get into what I brought you on here for.
All right. F. Keith Slaughter. Yeah, some people call me Trap Pastor Hill. I call myself that as well. I born in Memphis, Tennessee, and grew up in a small town called Blythesville, Arkansas, on the other side of the river from Memphis. Mississippi River, in case folks know the area. And graduated from high school there, did a little military thing. They put me out. It was cool. I went to Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina, and there I kind of began dealing with activism and engaging in activism after kind of learning about the history of Shaw and SNCC being begun there. There's a way in which I felt just a nudging to engage and involve myself in what was going on. So I guess the first thing I did was join the Jesse Jackson campaign, Rainbow Coalition in '84, and then from there started what was actually the precursor to what we know now as Moral Mondays in Raleigh, and started to engage in protest in North Carolina. Raleigh was a totally different city then. Anyway, I ended up moving to Tuskegee, transferring to Tuskegee, where I became further engrossed in activism. And at that time, too, I was a young man, and I began, I guess, at the age of 21, 22, to be a preacher or respond to my call to preach. And what I was thinking about this morning, actually, what I started doing is actually taking seriously my call to attempt to imitate sweet black Jesus, our African Messiah. I didn't know what I was doing. I just felt an urge to kind of be in a space where I was representing and standing up, because at that time, all I knew was my father's example as a black preacher, and he was always active. He was a Kingian, I would say, a little bit better than a private, but not quite a lieutenant. Right? He was like a sergeant. He came home with the knots. My dad participated in marches and actually covert resistance as it relates to where we were when we moved from Memphis to Blythesville. He started trying to blow up the white folk stuff in Arkansas, because actually within our family and within Arkansas, there's a long history of the black resistance movement, beginning in Elaine, Arkansas, where black people actually created a Pony Express type communication system in order to affect revolution. But of course, one of your cousins snitched. But so at any rate, once I got to Tuskegee, I changed majors from speech pathology and audiology to history, and that changed my life totally. I studied under Willie Fluker. Anybody from Tuskegee knows the great Willie Fluker, and James Tolan, who was the first vice mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama, which is a whole nother story about revolution and black people taking not only responsibility, but taking power in a space where they were, oppressed beyond description. And once I got to Tuskegee, it's the first time in my life I ever felt I was home. Black mayor, black police chief, black fire chief, black man owned the grocery store, black man president of the university, black man owned the Wendy's, the McDonald's, black man owned the pharmacy, black man owned the grocery store, black man was the dentist. Everybody was in power, who was in leadership, was Black. And it was the first place that I ever felt absolutely comfortable and safe and secure. And I stayed there. Yeah, like when I got there, I had 60 hours. I should have graduated in 2 years. I stayed there about 8 or 9 years just because I thought I was in heaven. And I started doing radio there on the local radio station as news guy. And then, fast forward, man, I end up graduating after they, and of course they had put me out, but they let me back in and I graduated. And then I began my professional life as a case manager for mentally ill substance abuse diagnosed persons on the west side of Chicago. And we talking about 1996, 1994, 1995. You know what I mean? And which was wild. The west side of Chicago in 1994, 95 was buck wild. You know, it was like a open air kind of crack market, period. The devastation, the oppression, just off the meter, off the charts. And the people that I was working with were the people who were most vulnerable, people who were suffering with mental health issues. And so I did that, and soon we moved to Atlanta because we heard Goody Mob say 1 million niggas inside. So we thought they were talking about us, so we came to get inside too. We wanted to get under the dome. And so we moved to Atlanta in 1999, 1980, 98, 99. Got here, and soon, I started serving, pastoring a small church over in Northwest Atlanta, right off Bankhead on Gary Road, and was, again, reactivating my activism, if you will, dibbling and dabbling in protest and things of that nature. And then the most life-changing thing that ever happened after Tuskegee was enrolling at the Interdenominational Theological Center. And there, my theological, psychological, social justice, just ideas kind of melded together, and everything began to make sense. Everything began to make sense. Once I learned that I had the right to interpret from my social context, I have that right. Now everything starts making sense, because before the idea was white theology is theology, right? But there are as many different kinds of theology as there are people, because theology is a cultural phenomenon. And so I began to learn, just, and my head just exploded. And again, just intensifying my attempt to mimic sweet Black Jesus, our African Messiah. All I ever been trying to do my whole life is be like that. I don't know how they put that in me. You know, how my dad as a minister, the people in the community or whatever. But that's what got put in me. And then when I got the correct interpretation of who sweet Black Jesus, our African Messiah, is, that he was a protester, that he was an insurgent, that he was someone who fought against systems, who lifted up people who caught the short end of the system. And I began to understand Jesus as a Black man helping Black people. And it got clear to me, like, how did I not know this the whole time? They telling you Romans are oppressing them. Romans were white people then. Romans are Black people. I mean, Romans are white people now. And the same people of the region, were Black people then. The people of the region are Black people now, except for those interlopers who have gentrified the land. So, I mean, it got clear to me then. It's always been a struggle between Blackness and European sensibilities. That struggle is millennia old. It's not new. It didn't start in 1619. It didn't start in 1415. It didn't start even it started pre-biblical or in biblical times,
Right.
where
Hey,
people
hold on,
began to
Slaughter.
where people began to make comparisons between themselves and other people. That's just not new, right? And they did it based on appearance.
Yeah, I'm with what you're saying, right? I'm checking it out, and I'm listening to what you're saying. You went into preaching mode. We supposed to be doing an interview. You done did a 10-minute sermon.
Well, you asked me. You asked me.
I mean,
you had to chime in on me, man.
Hey,
that's what I do, bro.
I'm waiting for the collection plate to pass by.
And there's always a time for that, man, because we're trying to open the shelter. We're trying to get my shelter open. So I need all the money I can get all the time.
My man, check this out. So bust it. Like, in a nutshell, right? So from what it is that you're saying, which is the most important aspect of it, because of the fact that you have folks that say, well, I'm not a Christian, or I'm a this, I'm a that, whatever. The most important concept, the most important part of the concept was that you took a story or a history or whatever you choose to call it, you know what I'm saying, a belief system, whatever, a way of life, whatever, and you made it manifest. So you said, listen, I'm going to go right to the hood. You know what I'm saying? And when I say the hood, he's located in the heart of Pittsburgh, and that's Pittsburgh, Atlanta. That's a section in Atlanta which was started by the first liberated Africans in that particular area, and it's an impoverished area. And it's not, when you say hood, sometimes when folks say hood, we got different versions of hood. Their hood and our hood might not be the same hood.
No,
their hood might just be under.
It's hoodie hood, but it's beautiful hood.
Right. But check it. So the work that you do, and that's the beautiful thing about it, because of the fact that folks come to this church. When you go to this community, you see the red, black, and green flag, you see the Ankh, you see the Jiname, and all of that. Now, that don't necessarily mean nothing to me because of the fact that I'm not just caught up in culture, aesthetics, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But what attracted me to your work was the fact that you're actually feeding families weekly, right? So I want you to tell me about that, and I want you to tell us about this shelter. You know what I'm saying? And some of the community work that's being done. We got a few more minutes. I really went
you let me go on time. It's okay.
Yeah, but I want to sum this up in like 5 minutes. Just the work you're doing and how people can support this, and then we'll bring you back on. But I definitely want to get.
It's all good. It's all good. So, we moved to the Pittsburgh community about 6 years ago.
I know.
Our church, about 5 years ago. Our church started 6 years ago, about 6 years ago. And from the inception of our church, we believed in sharing with each other, right? And so when we were able to acquire that space right there in the heart of Pittsburgh, what we began to do is practice outside of the walls, the practices that we had already established within. Our church's doctrine is grounded in the principles of Ma'at, the virtues of Ma'at, as well as the Nguzo Saba. We don't do no Christian covenant and all of that. We went to the source. The source is Ma'at. So that informs how we do everything that we do and why we do everything that we do. So last year, we were able to acquire another piece of property. And bro, I'm telling you, man, we started from zero, goose egg. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have anything 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But now we've acquired 2 buildings, 5 lots in the heart of Pittsburgh, which is unheard of in this moment of gentrification. And what we noticed after we did a quick analysis of where we were, what we noticed is that brothers and sisters were living in bandos. It's the bando culture in the Pittsburgh community because it's under the process of gentrification, right? So you got all of these abandoned houses and you got all these brothers and sisters living in them. So the people got a roof over their head. So the question was, what can we do? Well, we know the people ain't got no food. Let's give them food. We know the people ain't got no electricity, so they can't charge their cell phones. Let's get a place where they can do that. We know the people can't access the computer. Let's get a place where they can do that. We know some of the people walking all day long with no place to go. Let's give them a place to come chill back, get a shower, get something to eat, and get a good word from somebody just telling you, man, we love you. I love you, and keep up the fight. We fighting together. And that's what the Little Zion Annex is all about. It's one block over from our church at 1117 Smith Street. We're at Ira. It's at Smith and Roy. We're at Ira and Roy. Well, we're in both spaces now, I guess, is what you said. But one is totally devoted to seeing about the people of the community, providing, getting them, helping people get IDs. Just it's more, we are engaged in more collaborations than I can name right now. And I just got to start writing all of these people down that we work with. But what we do is work with other people to make sure that we get the people taken care of.
Hey, listen, man, I'm going to definitely have you back on here. And when I'm saying I really hope that folks are getting the importance of your work. Because the thing is, and this is my task right now. We've had a lot of different people on here, Slaughter. We have everybody from, as far as our platform, everybody from Cornell West to Cynthia McKinney to Killer Mike, whoever. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, all three of those people I've interviewed myself.
Right. So, but what's more important than any of that is the people who are in the community, in the hood, every single day. You know what I'm saying? The people that are serving the people whose office is literally in the street. That's what matters to me. So part of my task is going to be to bring on more folks like yourself who are in the community and getting things done, not the cats that are on international stages and whatnot and rapping well and on the CNNs and all that.
I am a nationally recognized scholar. I must say that wasn't included in my bio. I am a doctoral level scholar. I am published. I do what I do. You know what I mean? I've been the host of a great morning show for 5 years. I do a lot of stuff. It's not that I'm humble. I just ain't got time to be pumping myself up. I got to be seeing about people. I ain't trying. Old now. I ain't trying to monetize this shit. I'm trying to see about people, man. Period.
No doubt, and that's what I'm talking about right there, man. So definitely, man, love and respect. I'm going to see you soon. I will be in your hood today, tomorrow, and
you're supposed to come see me. And I'm going to be on The Situation with Dr. F. Keith Slaughter, the show formerly known as Movement Raw and Uncut.
No doubt.
And reblasting, and on Monday through Thursday from 11 to 1. You know what I mean? Every Monday through Thursday. We take off Fridays because white folks don't go to work on Friday. They just send you. So I ain't going neither. You know what I'm saying?
I lost your mind, man. And found it in the right place. Anyway, the Remix Morning Show, definitely, I'm going to get your website. Folks, definitely check out your show, The Movement. And it's on point. So we're going to catch you in the whirlwind, brother. Be safe, and I'm going to talk to you in a minute.
Bless black man.
Yes, sir. Salute. Remix Morning Show. You know what it is. That's Dr. F. Keith Slaughter, man, right in the neighborhood of neighborhoods, doing what he's supposed to do. We'll be right back.
Cool. I love Reverend Slaughter, the Trap Pastor. I was actually on his show yesterday. I've been on his show a couple of times because, we do work together in Pittsburgh. He don't remember me from shit. Every time I'm on, he's like, "Brother, I knew you from 20 years ago when you used to work in the something seminary." I was like, I was in Brooklyn 20 years ago, but I let it go. I was like, let's just keep on doing the interview.
It's crazy. I was supposed to be on there yesterday too. So I was supposed to be on there at 12, yesterday, 12:10 or something like that. And I got caught up in another meeting, as you know. But
he does, like you say, he does a lot of good work in the neighborhood. He's a different kind of preacher. The first time I went to his church, there was a few of us from Community Movement Builders, and he was doing this show. He's going to be on this podcast. And he's like, I don't recognize these folks up in here. I don't feel safe. Let me go get my piece. And he walked off the stage. He went and got a bag out. You know, I have no idea what was really in the bag, but he came back, he put the bag there, and he was like, whew, now I feel better.
Hey man, he's from Arkansas, so listen, black people from Arkansas carry. they told them things. I was encouraged to hear that he has Arkansan roots. My peoples are from Arkansas originally, so I'm sure he has crossed paths with a Brown or two in his work. But yeah, that was an incredible interview, Kalonji. Definitely, we should have him on again.
Absolutely. Wish it was a little bit clearer, but you know, it is what it is. If you ever come to Atlanta, when folks come to Atlanta, definitely stop by his piece. Like I said, I'm not I'm not a fan of just religion for the sake of religion. You know what I'm saying? If you make it do what it do, then I respect that. And if you don't, then I won't. And that's just that. But it's an awesome show today. You know what I'm saying? Time went by so fast.
I'm glad you were here for the whole 2 hours.
Hey, brother, I was here in spirits.
True. You were actually. You were.
Yes,
we had some good topics. Some we got to follow up on some of these things.
I caught a little bit when I was moving. I'm like, man, I was going hard.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch the Chappelle special today, tomorrow, tonight, somewhere in there. So maybe I'll watch it tonight so I can report back.
Yeah, you're not gonna like it. It's not. Even I didn't think it was as funny as the last one, to be honest. I thought it was okay, but it wasn't as funny. You know.
But see, it's weird. But when you say the last one, do you mean the last Netflix joint or his last comedy special? Period. Because like I said,
no, he did a couple on Netflix. I mean, he's not done now like 5 or 6 on Netflix, I guess, but. The one I guess he did one. It's the first one that appeared on Netflix, and then there was one he did a couple and I guess it was one of them when he was first responding to the LGBTQ pushback, and he started talking about Caitlyn Jenner and stuff like that. And I thought that not just that part, but this was like during Trump and stuff like that. So he had a whole bunch of political humor, social commentary humor, and I thought that was really good too. And just jokes for the sake of jokes. But I was never into like he did one around the issue of George Floyd. I think he went on for the same time as George Floyd. The cop was on George Floyd's neck, whatever, and he had a couple of them like that. And those ones I just didn't find as funny. He did one in Atlanta that wasn't as funny either to me. But in general, again, I still think he's a hilarious comedian and stuff like that. So it's worth the watch. It's worth the discussion back and forth. But if you're watching strictly for the jokes, I'm just saying this is not one of his, for me at least, it wasn't one of his like funniest in terms of the Chappelle stuff.
Okay.
Sound serious. So sound like we got a show to look forward to tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen.
Indeed.
You know what I'm saying? Man, Remix Morning Show about that time. Yes. Y'all be safe.
All right. Remix.
Salute.
Peace.